Hello, sir.
Chezi, how are you doing?
Praise the Lord. I am doing fairly well.
Nice.
Doing well. We had a little scare last night in the neighborhood. Little girl went missing.
Mm.
So very quickly, which was nice. Like, tons of people in the neighborhood got together and started like sort of combing the whole area, and they contacted the youth groups, and the youth group kids were going out and like flashlights. But thank God within we found her.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended well, but that was a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Aside from that, work's going well. Things in the country less so. Yeah, sort of rolling with the punches. I'm going to be coming to the States. It's been a while. I think
Nice.
last time was 2018. Yeah, so coming in April for like a little over a week.
You have family here still, right?
My in-laws, first of all, I have family. I have family in the States, but I have a huge family. So actually, it's massive on both sides. I'm having to get closer with my mother's side, but let's say just on like the close family on my father's side is over 100 people, like locally.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just like, it could easily get to like 300 or something like that are just like Spiros. So, I mean, if we see each other, we give each other a nod, but like I'm not uber close to them.
Where's the tribe? Is it East Coast? Midwest or West?
Cleveland.
Cleveland, okay.
Baltimore.
Interesting.
It's just lost Levites, just a lot of lost Levites. But
they have no land, so they just
exactly, they have no land. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know if you saw in the news, very prominent rabbi in the ultra Orthodox community came out saying that he considers him and all the ultra Orthodox students that are studying all day, he sees them as the tribe of Levite, and that's why they don't have to join the army.
Right.
Of course, that's only true if it's a if it's an obligatory war. There's different milchemet mitzvah and milchemet reshut. I'm saying halachically he seems to be mistaken, and many other reasons. And I just don't like my tribe being used that way. But nevertheless, my father-in-law is being honored, and we're going in for that.
It's cool.
Truth be told, my wife is going in for that. I'm going in for the fact that like it's my chance to take my kids to see like real dinosaurs and like good museums. So which we don't have in this country. So like Legoland and things like that. So I'm gonna capitalize on that and try to give them a good vacation.
Nice. Well, if you're around Austin,
I'll pop by for sure. Hopefully one day. What about you? How was your week?
It was good. It's a nice week. Yeah, it was. We changed our clocks. I apologize. We changed our clocks here on Sunday. So
we're back to 7 hours. So what time is it by you now?
It is 2.
2 o'clock. Okay, I got you.
Yes, and in the morning it was really dark. So I need to get
and I could be wrong, and you may be correcting already. Your mother next week, next month,
next week.
Okay, all right.
So
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where did we stop? Number 19.
We stopped actually one before that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Got you. This is where we ended. Right. We were speaking about right, meritorious, right, that magical word over there, and about one who causes a community to be meritorious and one who causes a community to sin. The differences over there. We got into a little depth about Jeroboam with regards to why he was a great man, how he was he was mistaken. He brought in the golden calf. We spoke a little about what those golden calves mean and how potentially he even thought he was doing he even thought he was doing the right thing potentially with bringing in these golden calves. We spoke about how even, and this has less to do with the ethics of their father, more specifically about the golden calf, how we could even see some interpretations where that is not even necessarily idol worship. Like, again, it was a very bad attempt of creating a mediator that was like, that sort of got out of control. We also spoke about the famous story about how Jeroboam, because he was so great, he receives two opportunities to repent, right? One of them when the prophet comes to him and tells him to repent, and he says no, and he paralyzes his hand, and he asks him for forgiveness, and his hand heals. Nevertheless, he doesn't repent. And then also the Talmud gives us a beautiful example of the beautiful, terrifying story about God tells him, I love you so much, Jeroboam. It's you, me, and the son of Jesse in the garden, right? And the Messiah in the garden. Well, let's all walk together and let's just create unity and work together. However, he asks who is in the head, who walks first, and he tells him it's the son of Jesse, right? We have this dynamic of Messiah, son of David, and Messiah, son of Joseph, and we see this fight over there as well, and he decides to say no, and the rest, of course, is history. I'll just add one more note. I don't know if I said this last week, but part of the reason that there was a mistake with the golden calf was that the cherubs that Moses builds, right? We could ask we could ask about the golden calf, Chazi, how are we allowing this as Jews? How are we coming down on the Israelites with regards to the golden calf if right after we build these two idols in the temple, right? This is obviously crazy. Yeah. So there's if you read carefully in the wording, God sort of carves out an option to build himself, not to build himself a golden statue, and this is not for the Israelites to build, number one. Number two, that the verse also says that they built it for themselves. And what God was interested in was a golden statue that has the face of a human, a boy, and a girl, right? And this is to symbolize the tselem, the image of God, right? So this is sort of sanctifying nature in a certain respect. However, the calf is only worshiping God through nature. So that means taking what's the strongest beast in nature, which is the calf. However, the calf ultimately bends his head to eat the grass. And this is there's a verse in Psalms that talks about this, but bending your head is showing that you're lowering your head down and you are bringing nature above you in a certain sense. And that was also the mistake, right? Which is just focusing on sanctifying nature and not recognizing where you need divine help from this as well.
And you just reminded me something. This is not related to Pirkei Avot, but I just didn't find any commentary on this as well. But from what I can see, it says about the egel, about the calf, that Aaron throws the gold, the jewelry into the jewelry that the Israelites give him. He throws it into the fire. Out comes the calf.
Right.
And then Moses, later on, when they're building the Mishkan, Moses can't figure out how to build the menorah. So then he throws the gold into the fire, and God takes out the menorah. Is there any connection here, or why?
Of course, that's the exact. First of all, there's another interpretation, which is Micha throws in. There's a baby that Moses saves from Egypt, and God warns him not to save this baby, that this baby is going to cause trouble, but Moses saves him, and ultimately he saves him, and this baby ends up growing up, and then he throws in the special scroll that has on it Joseph's name. this is the same scroll that Moses used, he threw into the Nile to bring up the bones of Joseph, right? The bones of Joseph, he made the other tribes swear to him that they would bring out the bones.
Yep.
But the Midrash says that the Egyptians hid the bones because they did not want to have Joseph leave, because he's a good omen, and they wanted that energy to stay in Egypt. There's, of course, symbolism over there, which is Moses is the correction of Joseph, who was trying to create like a more universal understanding through Egypt, right? And this goes all the way back to Abraham, that goes down to Egypt with his wife. So there's different attempts in our history to try to take out the divine sparks from Egypt. Ultimately, like the Israelites leave. Having said that, Moses goes to the Nile and throws in this scroll of the bull and says, Aleshor, Aleshor, rise bull, and then the sarcophagus comes out of the water. And they say that the same attempt was done with the calf. They threw that in, and that's where they got the calf. But even with the example of Aaron, the attitude is, the school of thought of Aaron is to meet the people where they're at, right? So Aaron says, okay, like I know how to apply the energies, so to speak, but if I'm meeting the people where they're at, then I'm applying the energy where they're at the level of their energy, right. Which means worshiping nature, which means you're going to get a manifestation of a calf. However, Moses is doing it, right? His orientation is proper. He is doing it to build the tabernacle for God. And that's why the intention is pure. Hence, the creation is pure as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right. Onwards. I see we have some peeps with us. We have Ups. Good to see you. We have Sandy. I'm glad to see you too. And Jason, you're also welcome, of course, to join at any time you'd like. Okay. כל מי שיש בו שלושה דברים הללו הוא מתלמידיו של אברהם אבינו, ושלושה דברים אחרים הוא מתלמידיו של בלעם הרשע. תלמידיו של אברהם אבינו, עין טובה ורוח נמוכה ונפש שפלה. תלמידיו של בלעם הרשע, עין רעה ורוח גבוהה ונפש רחבה. מה בין תלמידיו של אברהם אבינו לתלמידיו של בלעם הרשע? תלמידיו של אברהם אבינו אוכלין בעולם הזה ונאכלין העולם הבא, שנאמר להנחיל אוהבי יש ועצרותם עמלה. אבל תלמידיו של בלעם הרשע יורשים גיהנום ויורדין לבאר שחת, שנאמר ואתה אלוהים תורידם לבאר שחת, אנשי דמים ומרמה לא ירצו ימיהם ואני אפתח bach. Okay, English. Let's just scroll back up. All right. Whoever possesses the following three traits is of the disciples of our father Abraham. And whoever possesses the opposite three traits is of the disciples of the wicked Balaam. The disciples of our father Abraham have a good eye, a meek spirit, and a humble soul. The disciples of the wicked Balaam have an evil eye, a haughty spirit, and a gross soul. What is the difference between the disciples of our father Abraham and the disciples of the wicked Balaam? The disciples of our father Abraham benefit in this world and inherit the world to come, as it is stated, to bequeath to those who love me there is, and their treasure I shall fill. As Proverbs. The disciples of the wicked Balaam inherit purgatory and descent into the pit of destruction, as it stated, and you, God, shall cast them into the pit of destruction, bloody and deceitful men. They shall not attain half their days, and I shall trust in you. Can you scroll down for a second? I just want to see what's the next one after this. Interesting. What's the one after this? Is it Ben Bagbag after this? Wow. Why is it like this?
It's different in
I remember it being different. It doesn't. Oh, good. I just knew we were getting up to Ben Bagbag soon because I know it's the end of this, but I'm like, where is it already? But now I see where it is. Okay. So we said we're talking about these three characters So these two groups, right, which seem they're the opposite ends of society, so to speak, right? So one are the disciples of Abraham, Abraham. I'm not gonna keep on saying our father. I think you guys get me. Abraham, the patriarch, right? So these are individuals that seemingly are achieving like this perfection of their character and their spirit. And on the other hand, we have the wicked Bilam, who are people that are the lowest morals, causing sorrow and causing, of course, suffering to other people. Now, I don't know how much you know about Bilam, but generally speaking, he is juxtaposed to Moses, because it was known that Moses is the greatest prophet of Israel. However, the dark side of the force, the Darth Vader, is Bilam, who was known as the greatest prophet to the nations of the world.
And he has a way with words.
He has a way with words, and there's different stories about Bilam. So specifically, though, why they're connecting him to Abraham would be historically they're both from Aram, right? They're from Syria. I also think recently, maybe not so recently, but they even found some sort of writing. Not a scroll, but something that was like etched in stone about Bilam, so which was quite interesting. But the hive mind could fact check me. But they're both from Iran. Both of them have a similar story where they show great eagerness to do to whether be righteous or be wicked, so to speak. They both lachvosh et chamoram in the morning. They get their donkey ready early in the morning. We're told about both of them this story, so that's like another comparison that we see there as well. Also, both of them are not necessarily they're not necessarily leaders. Like Moses was a leader, right? They're both famous seekers. They're out there in the world speaking to God in a certain aspect, right? Like in a certain aspect, and they both represent. Abraham represents the nation of Israel, but also all the nations are blessed through him. And Bilam represents also the nations, yes, as a prophet, and we could also see that with Moses, when God tells Moses after the golden calf, I'm going to wipe them all out, right? And Moses tells God, forget it, like get rid of me, because Moses himself stems his power from Abraham, because Abraham is the father of the nation. And Moses is saying, if it's not for, like, I'm just a cock. If it's not for the nation, like, you can't destroy them all and just leave me, because I'm not the main story. The main story was Abraham. And that's why we have the whole story. The whole book of Genesis is really to show us how from Adam and Eve and through their kids and onwards, constant conflict, right? The brothers, they're fighting, Jacob, Isaac, ultimately, with the story of Joseph at the end of Exodus, we see what the story was for. The story was to show us that there is fight, there is disunity, there are arguments. Of course, there's the Tower of Babel, but ultimately the brothers who say out loud that they hated their brother, right, ultimately end up embracing each other, right? And once Genesis ends showing unity is possible, love is possible, then the story starts. Now we can talk about the next books, the people of Israel onwards. But with regards to Moses, he sees himself as part of the chain, right? So there's no getting rid of everyone and just leaving me. And this goes back to why Abraham is here, because Abraham is the father of the nations. So
right, and it's a kind of that arcs or to the name that God uses, Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Like, I mean, that's like a particular name that is used that kind of connects all of this together.
Definitely, and the patriarchs, they themselves are the chariot, right? There's a lot of deep teaching within like who the patriarchs are. We of course learn from the patriarchs how to behave. They have fully embodied the Torah, right? We say that the patriarchs kept all the Torah. Of course, there is seemingly a problem over here, right? The Torah was given after the patriarchs. How is this possible? And the answer is they were embodying the Torah principles already beforehand, right? Abraham is really the first Noahide in a certain, well, Noah is the first Noahide, but Abraham himself is a Noahide to a certain extent. Shalom, brothers, trying to promote the gold you're all learning down here in the morning's live stream. If you were doing that, that's very nice. Thank you. Much appreciated. Ups just lets us know where to find the story of Bilam. And it concludes in the numbers. Yes. Different conclusions. We're also told that Bilam is killed later on. Like we said, fascinating person. So, Ain Tova. What is a good eye? Right? So this generally means being content with a little. Right? A person with a good eye. And these are, of course, traits that we've already spoken about in the past in the ethics of our father, that many of the rabbis that we speak about seem to embody and embody this, and also had these attributes as well. Someone that's happy with their possessions, and also he is happy with when others succeed. Right? I'm happy if you did well. I'm happy if you got the promotion. We always talk about this. You want to be in a space where if you get a promotion, people are not shooting arrows at you and hoping it's not going to work or are jealous. Rather, they're telling you, wow, that's amazing. That's fantastic. I'm so happy that this happened for you, and genuinely mean so, right? They're very comfortable with themselves, and they're also looking at the world in a positive way, right? So we obviously see that an example, and why we speak about Abraham with regards to the good eye is that famously he has his tent, which is open, right, to all over, because he wants his guests to come by. You could argue, like, some strangers are coming all of a sudden. Why would you not assume the worst, right? He's open. He's out there. He wants to bring people in, and he's assuming the best. Secondly, there's, of course, the famous story when Abraham needs to release his nephew who got into some trouble. Lot, right? He gets caught by the kings. He's fighting them out. However, he doesn't want anything from the king of Sodom, right? He doesn't want any of the gold. He's just there to save his brother. And you could say, like, what he won. Why did he not just take the things from them? Why did he not take the spoils of war? And the reason is because he doesn't need other things for himself to keep himself sustained and to keep himself happy. He's not looking to gain from others people's loss. This also relates, of course, to the story of, just because it's apropos and it's this month that we will be celebrating the holiday of Purim. So we famously know that Haman, when he casts his lot of, and why it's called Purim, the lot is called a pur. He says, they're a strange people. They behave in a strange way. But ultimately, when he sends out the letters, the decree saying we should be able to kill them on this day, the most important thing is at the end where he says, Ushalalam laboz. And this is the trigger to all the other people around the 127 nations that Xerxes is in charge of. He's letting all those people know that not only can you kill the Jew in this one day of the month, also you could take all their spoils. So you could imagine, and people are getting this like a year in advance. So you can imagine people are already eyeing other people's possessions. I know that I'm going to kill the Cohens. I know that I'm going to kill this guy. People are already eyeing that. And when Mordechai, eventually when they stop Haman and he sends out the counter message, right? He asks the king to bring back all the messages he sent out about killing the Jews. The king says, Xerxes says, I can't do that. It's too late already. Right? Like I can't, whatever was
my own name,
I can't bring back.
Yeah.
But he says you could send out your own counter narrative saying you could defend yourself, you could protect yourself. Now he does that. However, and the Esther also articulates how many people they killed in the inner court. That was like a political coup. They got rid of all the people that were not happy with Esther and Mordechai within the court, within the palace itself in Shushan Habira, and then there's the people that they kill without the 120 throughout the 127 nations of Xerxes. But it also ends there that they didn't touch any of the spoils. Right? It was just self-defense. We weren't interested in taking anything. We weren't extra to gain that extra advantage. Right. So this would be
extra advantage. It's also like it kind of reminds me of Joshua, right? Like the the going into maybe in Yericho too, in Jericho, like those kind of wars where you're not supposed to. Also, the decree there was not to not
the spoils of war.
Yeah,
correct. And that obviously does not work out well when Achan steals from the spoils,
Mhm.
and then we have the spooky ark floating through the
Right.
camp that identifies him.
Mhm.
There are different reasons. Like I'm saying, yes, that's also as far as conquering the land. We're ultimately there to first come out and give peace a chance. We're not looking to take from anyone what we don't need, and what we could get from God, and God sustains us, right? So that's also a built-in attitude of faith, right? Where I don't require from the other, and this is why we famously have the saying, "Ezehu ashir hasameach bechelko," right?
Mhm.
Who is rich? One who is happy with his lot, or rejoices in his portion, right? And that is something that I teach my kids all the time. Be aware of what you have. Be thankful for what you have, and be content with that.
Right.
Any comments? Or
yeah, I have in the magic book here.
Yeah.
On something that you said faith, and the book here also mentions a specific commentary, and this is also related. I am just starting to read Sha'ar Bitachon, the Gate of Trust.
Yeah.
So anyway, in this book, the commentary here mentions having a good eye means to see the goodness and divine kindness in every occurrence, even that which appears to be unfortunate, thereby revealing the hidden good within each occurrence. So this is according to the Sfat Emet.
So that's a very deep teaching. There's a famous rabbi named Nahum Ish Gamzu.
Gamzu.
In Hebrew, Gamzu means also this, right? His name was Nahum, also this. Right. And why did they call him Nahum, also this? Because everything that would happen, he would say, Gamzu letova. This is also for the good. We should be careful, though. He's not saying this is also good, but this is also for the good.
Right. And this there's somebody else. Right.
Ultimately, and when we recite the Shema, we close our eyes, right? Because we say, "Hear, O Israel, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad," right? We take the name Elohim, we take the name Adonai. We're saying both of the things are one, right? God number one and God number two is all the same. God is everything. Now we close our eyes because we are saying something that our eyes can't see. Right. It doesn't make sense to us to say these things, because if God is everything and all is God, then you're also saying that evil is also from God, as the prophets taught us. So through faith and through tradition, we know this to be true based on faith, and that's why we proclaim this. However, we close our eyes because we have this cognitive dissonance when we say this thing. And when we say Gamzu Letova, we're saying also this is for the good. Ultimately, I believe that even the bad things that happen, in them, there is a divine spark that are for good. Now, that's not for humans necessarily to understand. That's in God's realm. Even we say when we're going to smite Amalek from under the sky, that's not over the sky. As far as humans are concerned, we need to get rid of them. As far as God's concerned, there is a place for Amalek as well. Right? Ultimately, everything also has its place.
Right. I see that as like a... it's not good. Like, we're not saying that it is good, but this is where the effort comes in. Like, we believe that God meant it for good. Like, eventually this is all according to the divine plan, but it's part of our responsibility to figure out, like the commentary here says, like, to reveal the hidden good, right? So it is kind of part of that's actually the unique thing that we can do, is to take the good out of anything, even the horrible things that happens to us, and to figure that. And that's in the book that I mentioned. Like that's how they try to define bitachon, this idea of trust that is beyond faith, that is something more, almost more proactive than just having hope. Hope is something that you can. Hope is more, not spiritual, but just like more ephemeral. But the bitachon is something that you can hold on to. It's something that you act with.
And so much so that you act that way that you deny. I'm saying by covering your eyes when saying the Shema, right? You're saying I am pushing through regardless, right? Seemingly like if I look, I won't be able to go off the cliff. But if I close my eyes, then I could bring back my faith. I could bring back my courage with believing this, with continuing going with this, right? So we are asked not to close our eyes because just be foolish and be blind, but rather understand that you understand your limitations. And then once you understand yourself properly, you could then push through them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we spoke about good eye, a meek spirit, Okay, so here too, where do we see an example of a weak spirit? So, of course, God famously tells Abraham. It's also not so clear that he tells Abraham. Rather, he's speaking to the angels. And it's interesting. The way the Bible talks about it is the Avraham od nosham, and like Abraham was still there. It's almost like God was having a conversation with the angels, and Abraham was just like is privy to the conversation, but he's not involved in it. He's just like awkwardly standing while God is telling the angels what to do. And after he hears that, he comes in, he's like, can I like interject for a minute about like what I just heard going down over here? This is pretty intense about you like destroying this whole people, right? So you could say that, we spoke about this. Dome is a horrible person, right? And Abraham could be like, of course, I'm so happy that Dome is getting destroyed because like, this is like, obviously this is evil in the world. Of course, he doesn't do though, right? He stands and he prays before God and he says like, let's please try to find merit in the way they're acting, right? So he tries to prevent their destruction. So this, of course, is someone that is could easily put himself at a higher position than them. He is putting himself much lower and trying to understand where they too could be meritorious. I would also mention that specifically in his request, right? He tells them, I'm forgetting the exact quote, but he doesn't walk up to God and say like, hey, what's up? It's me. It's Abraham, your boy. He comes and says, I am ashes. I'm nothing, right? I'm dust. And he doesn't consider himself righteous. Rather, he ultimately knows that, as we say, me'afar bato me'afar tashum, right? We start from dust and we end up being dust. So this is a very compelling example of like a humble spirit or a meek spirit, right? Someone that very clearly knows himself and knows his position. And this is Abraham after, he's already a big deal. People know Abraham. He had his own following. Nevertheless, he has no problem knowing his place and putting himself between God and the wicked. Right. So that would be a great example of the meek spirit. And lastly, we have a humble soul, right? A nefesh shvela. So again, a person here with a humble soul. Also, this has to do more about battling like the evil inclination, the yetzer hara, right? So he knows to sort of satiate his soul and not require other bodily what's the word I'm looking
means
for?
Or wants?
Bodily means or bodily I want to say stimulation, right? For his sustenance, right? And again, another example of Avram doing this would be, actually, we mentioned this earlier about Abraham going down to Egypt.
Yeah.
So I said there's a teaching over there that he's there to collect the divine sparks from Egypt. But more specifically in our story, he goes down and it says the English translation would be behold, right? He tells his wife, people are going to think you're really pretty, right? So you should say you're my sister. Like he gives this whole story about his wife. And the sages interpret this, him saying, behold, which is up until that moment, he never really focused on how good looking she was. That was never his focus. But now he's going down to Egypt. Someone's like, yo, by the way, your wife is like, she's a 10. He's like, oh crap, you're right. My wife's a 10. Like, I got to be careful about this right now. But this is someone that, and it's not to say that he doesn't appreciate his wife in that sense, but that's not what he's focusing on. And suddenly he only realizes that once that's relevant to the context he's in, right? But that's clearly someone that is not focusing on the physical, and that's not what's giving his soul sustenance, of course, right? So that's not what he's focusing on.
Right. It was never something that was fully relevant to him. It wasn't like it was the height of his priorities, hence it wasn't as salient to him than other things.
So this would relate to, let's say, some of the Essenes group or the Nazirs, the Nazarites, right, who decide to distance themselves from physical desires, right, so they could reach spiritual achievements. And of course, specifically with this regard, the Nazarite has to bring a sin offering, right, because you've distanced yourself from the gifts that God has given you. And in general, one should be very careful distancing himself from all physical desires, because God has given us this amazing world, and many of these physical desires can and should be achieved. They just should be done in the proper context and in the proper orientation, as we speak about often. I just want to make sure
it can be elevated.
Yes.
By someone that has, as your level grows, you can also elevate those things as well. Yep.
A great lesson. Who is rich? Who rejoices? Exactly. So, like we mentioned, what we learn in Pirkei 4.1 in the first Mishnah, of course, applies over here as well.
This was one of my favorite sayings in Hebrew before I even knew it was from Pirkei.
Ashrecha shekivanta. Upcycle Club. Aram spoke up saying, "Here I venture to speak to my Lord. I am dust and ashes." Exactly. Thank you for giving us the exact quote. I remembered ashes and dust, but that is beautiful. Thank you, sir. This is participating very nicely. 10 extra points for you. And by the way, yes, the points matter at the end of the year. I'm not going to tell you how I'm calculating them, but if you don't have points, let's just say it's not great. Then you're considered one of Bilam's students now. Okay. So we did the humble soul as well.
Yes.
Now we move on to the wicked disciples of Bilam, right? And they have the reverse, right? They have the evil eye, the haughty spirit, and the gross soul, right? So the evil eye, in a certain sense, it would be the opposite, right? This is you're not satisfied with the things that are in front of you. You are coveting other people's wealth. You want what they have, right? This is very much like the grass is greener sort of situation. And we are told that Bilam excelled in these things, right? And like, where would we see this? So famously in the story of Balaam, that if anyone's interested, Ups gave us the verses and the chapter where we're talking about this. But Balak, the king, Balak ben Zippor, who was known to be one of the descendants or the remnants of Bnei Kedem. Bnei Kedem were a very old people. Maybe it was the Anunnaki. Maybe it was an old group. Either way, they were aware of older magic, which also at some point we spoke about Gamzelo Tova, even magic ultimately connects back to the source. But he was called Ben Zippor because he would use this ancient witchcraft through a bird, and inside the bird's mouth it would put a bone. Whatever, it's just some general context. But Balak comes and he says he needs a heavier hitter. He needs, bring me the big guns, bring me Bilam. And he sends his messengers to go ask him to curse Israel, right? And famously, God tells Bilam, it's not going to happen. You can't go with them. And then Bilam sends them back, right? And then when Balak messengers return the second time, right? They're like more distinguished messengers, and they don't mention what they're going to give him, but they say, we'll promote you and we're going to give you a lot of honor, but they don't specify what he's going to get, right? And you could see in a certain sense here, him sort of teasing out from them, like, offer me more, right? Like, I'm not content with this first offering. I'm using God as an excuse, saying he doesn't let me go. Like, listen, I can't get out of bed for this. Even God won't let me get out of bed for this right now. And this is like really revealing his like greedy character in a certain sense. And he even tells the messengers, if Balak offered me gold and silver, right, I still couldn't do it, right? And this is sort of showing us what he's really thinking about. He's giving them sort of a hint, like even if you gave me $1 billion, I wouldn't be able to do it. Now, no one offered $1 billion yet, but he's already saying, like, like you're gonna have to like make like a really big deal out of this. And so we could see it already in his mind what he's really aiming at, right? Because again, they didn't mention it; he's mentioning this as well. So this, again, we could be, when we speak to people, even today, we could notice many times that like a Freudian slip, right? The truth is coming out from their subconscious because this is really what they ultimately want, right? So this would be an evil eye, someone that covers other people's things, and even lets that sort of spill out because he has such little self-control over what his emotions are really pushing him to take. And we have a haughty spirit. Okay, so here too, this is obviously focusing on the pride over here and the opposite of what we're dealing with Abraham. So here too, like his refusal to go with Balak, like with the first messengers, under the excuse that it's from a divine prohibition, because if that's what really bothered him, then why is he even a bad dude, right? You clearly know that your power comes from God, right? So what are you even worried about? But clearly he's using this as just like, this is a comfortable excuse for me to say that like I'm not even as available as I want it to be, right? So this is clearly giving him like certain pressing on his pride issues. He is pushing them to come in with the better, the more distinguished messengers, right? So again, this is just stroking his ego. The first thing and the second thing are quite similar and quite connected, right? And he even has his own self-praise issues over here. So Bilam is also known as Shtum Ha'ain. Shtum Ha'ain means that he couldn't see out of one eye, right? Now there's different interpretations of that, but for all intents and purposes, right now, you could see that he claims that he has like this godlike perspective, right? So he could see everything that's going on around him, but yet he can't see his own flaws. There's a Hasidic teaching. I don't know which rabbi said it. Maybe Jacob would remember. But the reason God gave us two eyes is one is for us to witness God's greatness, and the other one is to recognize our own humanity, and because of that, be humble. Right. So I have two perspectives that I could constantly be seeing.
Right. So I don't know if we mentioned this little small, like the Hebrew tidbit that it uses for a haughty spirit is in Hebrew ruach gvah, so like a high spirit as opposed to a lowly spirit, right? So the lowly
here it's ruach nemucha.
Ruach nemucha, right? So ruach gvah meaning that he thinks, right, the pride as being something that you perceive yourself as higher.
Yes,
right? It's just interesting in the Hebrew for that, and also to just mention ruach ein ra v'ruach gvah. So a bad eye, an evil eye or a bad eye, and a haughty spirit. The way that I think it can be differentiated a little bit is that an evil eye can also be presented as you see other people through your own values, through your belief of how the world works, right? So if you believe that the world works through a power struggle, then that is how you would perceive other people acting. You would perceive other people acting to gain power or to take power from other people. So that is the part of the Ein Ra, the evil eye, is that is the thing that moves you in the world, and so you see the world through that.
That would be an example of having a famine mentality, right? There's not enough for everyone. I can only think about myself, and that is definitely not a healthy outlook.
Right.
You could speak about material goods. You could also have a famine mentality with regards to religion, right? There's not enough to go around, but rest assured, there's enough God to go around for the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims and the Hindus. He's given love to everyone. Where were we? About his blindness, right? So we said that you have to have these two eyes, and he's seemingly also being blinded with one eye physically, but also you could say spiritually, he's also blind to this, right? He can't see his own faults, right? And even though he has like these unique talents, right, they ultimately lead to his downfall, right? Because and they also end up tarnishing his legacy as well. Like he ends up being like, he's like this, he ends up getting killed, but he was at the time a rock star. But clearly those talents weren't enough to protect him from his own demise. And this is because he let himself into a into a problematic place. At the very least, once he already saw God was involved, right? At that point, he should have like pumped the brakes and be like, all right, like I'm out of my depth.
Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, we have with Bilam, we had the haughty spirit and the gross soul, right? The nefesh rechava,
which is a wide soul.
In Hebrew, it would be like a wide soul, right? Here it's saying a gross soul. So I think it's like a soul that wants, right? It's very wide. It's all encompassing. It just wants.
Right.
So this is like an insatiable soul. I think the word would be a better word. So it's always wanting more, like we were saying. It's wide. It's grasping out there, and it's never ultimately filled, right? So here again, we see that going back to the same verse with Balak, he wants more from them ultimately, and he then gives them advice once he sees this failed. His advice to them is, you know what you should do? You should bring the Moabite and the Midianite women, right? And ultimately cause the Israelites to sin that way with intermarriage and improper behavior. But
it's very interesting. It actually reminds me. I'm sorry. It reminds me. Now it reminds me of a very famous scene in Inglourious Bastards. So I got apropos a little bit, but I don't know if you've seen it, but the Nazi general it's one of the main characters in the movie. He talks to this French guy that is hiding Jews in his house, and this Nazi general.
Au revoir, Shoshana.
Exactly, yeah. So he suspects him of doing that, and he says, you know, in order to find the rats, which he's referring to,
you have to think like a rat.
You have to think like a rat, and I really see that in Bilam, right? He's thinking, how can I reduce these people? How can I hurt these people? Let's see, what do I want? What do I like? What do I seek? What are my desires? And he thinks about the Moabite women, right? So.
Exactly. So that's a perfect explanation, right? So he looks at the Israelites' tents, right? And this is a verse that we say his curse or his blessing, which he was forced to articulate, is something that we actually sing and we pray every day in our morning prayer, right? Matovu alecha Yaakov, right? How great are the tents of Jacob, and the Midrash tells us that he noticed that the tents weren't aimed at each other. There was privacy, and people didn't want to be looking at each other's own business, right? And there's a sense, again, at that time where you could imagine you take out these slaves, there's a slave mentality. Here we see, the nation of Israel is trying to orient itself properly and set up already, even though they're still nomads at this point, create in their encampment, create some sort of proper behavior, right? Some sort of ethical code that they're already building into their system. Now he sees this, and this drives him mad. And like you said, he has to think like, what can I do that's gonna disturb this or disrupt this? And he decides based on what he thinks and what he wants, right? What would drive also him in a certain sense? He brings this in. I should mention just specifically on the story of Bilam, which is fascinating because Moses is telling us a story. The Israelites have no interaction with Bilam. We're being told that this is happening you cut the scene and you're going, these are different characters that we don't even deal with. And in a certain sense, it's also letting the Israelite know there is constantly an exterior discussion happening about the Jew. As long as your tents are oriented properly, you will be protected from that discussion.
Right.
It's just something to take into consideration. Right. So ultimately, like we said, like his counsel at the end of the day, his advice to Bilam, this reveals how corrupt he is, and his seemingly shameful strategies of how to bring the demise of the Israelite people, which ultimately it fails. Hi, Bilam. I'm still here, 2024. Onwards. Then we moved on to, okay, so right, so what is the difference? Right, because you could ask seemingly like, isn't it obvious what the difference? We just went through what the differences are. Right. Why are we being asked again? Like, so what is the difference between them? The answer is really to show you about like the reward that they get. Right, it's really to stress that, which is that the students of Abraham, and the terminology in English is to bequeath to those who love me, there is, and their treasure I shall fill. Okay, so there is also interesting, but basically, so anyone that's following the path of our forefathers, the patriarchs, right? He's giving himself, as we say, he's enjoying the fruits of his deeds in this world, right? But we spoke about this in the past. The principle is preserved to the world to come, right? And of course, Gentiles have a route to this as well. Fear not. And what's interesting also that at that point, if you do this, you earn the coveted title of being God's beloved, right? So here it says, to those who love me, right? And we also speak about Abraham is known as Ahuvi, my beloved. That's like a very big, it's a very big deal, of course, to get to that place. So that's part of the reward. The other part of the reward in Hebrew is lanchil ohava yesh. Right, so what does God bestow upon His beloved? So this yesh is, we know about this from Kabbalistic terms, right? The yesh and the en, the is this is a term from the world to come, right? Which is, this is the eternal realm. This is the substance of that that it represents it represents eternity in a certain sense. So there's a deep reading into that specific word. Again, as it says over here, I'm thinking about in English, which is bequeath to those who love me, there is. And their treasure I shall fill. There is, when it says there is, that means the yesh. They will be eternal.
Right.
You with me? Or is this a little...
No, I understand what you're saying. It's just interesting to see the different, how they tried to translate it.
I'm not loving there is, right? So I mean, like, it will be substantial, it will be eternal.
It's interesting also, look at the first part, to be the benefit in this world and inherit the world to come. It's interesting because it kind of relates to what we spoke about in terms of ochlim, the word in Hebrew.
The fruits. I'm eating the fruits.
I'm eating the
principle, the inheritance, the land that's in the world to come.
Right. It's in addition to that, I think another kind of like possible commentary about is that you are able to take in the material of this world and enjoy it in a way that still also will bring you into your reward in the world to come, right? So we said it's not something that we're like the Nazarites, like the Nazirim, that we completely disengage from, like this world. Actually, the highest level is that we can engage with this world. We eat the things, right? On Shabbat, we enjoy, we eat three meals, and that also in a way that is not detrimental, but leads us also to the reward in the world to come. And we don't, these are all kind of like synchronized beautifully, as opposed to being opposed.
An anecdotal story that's relevant to that is Rabbi Kook famously would not, many people on Shabbat in Jewish communities, it's custom to share and discuss thoughts of Torah at the Shabbat table. And that's a beautiful time because you are getting to participate, of course, in understanding God in a deeper sense. However, Rabbi Kook famously he would tell many stories at the table, and many of them are Torah related, but he would not give specific words of Torah at the Shabbat table. And the reason was he didn't want people thinking that the Shabbat table is elevated or sanctified because of these words. Rather, it's because it's Shabbat. It's because I'm enjoying the meal. It's because I'm enjoying my time with you guys. And that's an example of enjoying these fruits, right? Which is there, of course, there's another deeper level to it, but that's not what I'm required to do right now. I could enjoy a meal with someone. Yes, I have to make a blessing. Yes, there's many things that are still happening within the context of a religious mindset, but that doesn't mean that every moment needs to be necessarily like the Nazarite. We're going to say, I'm distancing myself from eating these grapes because like it's too much for me, this physical world.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the flip side, right, we have the students, the disciples of Bilam, right? And you, God, shall cast them into the pit of destruction, bloody and deceitful men, and they shall not attain half their days, and I shall trust in you. The way it ends also alludes to something that you mentioned in the beginning of the stream. But first off, their lives are metaphorically Gehenom or Gehenna, as it said, the Christians talk about it, right? So this is very much up Jordan Peterson's alley, right? When he says like, you're living in hell, or you're living the actual hell itself. So you're living this degraded existence, and this is obviously, this is self-inflicted, right? Because you've had this haughty spirit, and because you had this evil eye, you've corrupted your own life. The way you look at things have been corrupted. The quality of your life has been corrupted because of this, and you're not enjoying life because of this as well. So there's a sense where hell is, you are creating a current hell experience for yourself, right? And there's another element of here, which is not only are they not gaining. Not only are they going to go in their afterlife, they're going into this pit of destruction, right? Whatever that means ultimately. Mm-hmm. There's a focus over here, or the rabbis talk about how it says that they shall not attain half their days, right? Which is people that live this way also end up having a shorter lifespan, whether it's because medically we'll say it's because of the stress or the depression or the trauma that they give themselves, or that's because they're being punished by divine punishment, that their life ends that their life ends earlier.
Right.
I'm trying to think if I should mention this or not. It was too controversial. This is not to offend anyone. I'm just putting some things into context. If someone looks in a little deeper, in the Talmud, they speak about Bilam as well. And they talk about how Bilam died at the age of 33 or something like that. And it mentions that the person that killed him is Pinchas. And then there's like another weird name connected to it. And there are interpretations that say that that's not talking about Bilam, because it's not possible that like that happened at that time period. Rather, it's speaking about Jesus. And it's talking about how Jesus died at an early age. And this Pinchas character is really, it's similar to a name of like a Roman person at the time. And this is more of like, because of the censor, the Talmud was like sort of hiding this. But the sense was, in the Talmud's eyes, that like Bilam, Jesus also sort of led people astray, XYZ, and that's why he was also cursed to die at an early age. Again, no one should take offense to this. I almost didn't mention it. It's just because it was relevant to these things. But again, if someone is offended, I'm sorry. Now,
one thing about the half their days also, that they should not attain half their days, is almost makes me think, this is kind of a poor analogy, but I think maybe you can see the point there, is that if you have, let's say, two tools and you choose to use one more than the other, that tool that you have is going to become dull, and it will become dull faster. So if you put all your stock in one thing, obviously that tool is not going to last for very long. So for somebody like Bilam and his followers and his disciples, they think that, let's say we're thinking about all material and more or all spiritual, right? If you put all your stock in the material world, obviously the tool that your body would not last, because that's all you're using, and you're not putting yourself on a higher level where you can have maybe a more balanced view of the world. So that kind of makes me think about that as well.
You hear that? The verse ends with "V'ani eftach bach," and I shall trust in you, right? Which is quite curious. That's how we end this verse about coming down on the disciples of Bilam. However, like you were saying, ultimately it has to do with bitachon, right? With trust, with faith,
Right.
which is despite at the end of here that it's despite lacking these like worldly pleasures, right? Which that so-called Bilam was chasing after, right? Mm-hmm. And by me acting like the student, the disciple of Abraham, I am denying myself from this. Nevertheless, I still believe in God, right? I believe that all these actions are divine actions. I believe that in any circumstance, ultimately, he wants for my well-being, right? So we even end this last note saying, nevertheless, gamzula tova, right? I could still see the good in this at the end of the day. And I would even say that even for the wicked person, right? He too should look at this and say that even that I'm at the pit of destruction right now, I too, right? God is looking always for us, even for the wicked, to turn around and repent. And he is always invited back.
Yeah.
So it's a word of advice and a pep talk, ultimately at the end for the disciples of Bilam. Mm-hmm. What do you say? Another one, or you want to stop?
I'm good until I have half an hour left.
Okay, so let's see how far we go with what's another one after this? Yehuda ben Tema Omer. Okay. We'll try to do this one quick, but if we see that we're rushing, we'll continue next week. Yehuda ben Tema Omer, Have az kanamer v'kal kanesher v'ratz katzvi v'gibor ka'ari לעשות רצון אביך שבשמיים. הוא היה אומר, אז פנים לגיהנום, ובושת פנים לגן עדן. יהי רצון מפניך, אדוני אלוהינו בלב, ותן שיבנה בית המקדש במהרה בימינו, ותן חלקנו בתורתך. Okay? So first, just even though it's the end, I'll just mention, if anyone's wondering, why we are finishing, why are we ending with a blessing at the end of the year? Mm-hmm. And in reality, this was supposed to be the concluding chapter of Pirkei Avot, of Ethics of Our Fathers. The following chapter after this is an addition that happens later on. Right, so because we were supposed to be ending with this, there was a blessing connected to it at the end of the day, and this is also a blessing that we mention also in the silent prayer, the standing prayer. We also talk about this also, as well.
Right at the end of after you make the 3 steps, it's also interesting. I don't know what
there's another reason why, if I recall correctly, why we make this, but I think we connected later on. I believe I'll have to see if it actually makes sense. Okay, Have az kanamer, right? So I didn't read this in English, sorry. Judah, son of Tema, would say, be bold as a leopard, light as an eagle, fleeting as a deer, and mighty as a lion, to do the will of your Father in heaven. He should also say, the brazen to purgatory, the bashful to paradise. May it be your will, Lord, our God and God of our fathers, the holy temple will be rebuilt speedily in our days, and grant us our portion in your Torah. Amen. So now let's dive in for a second. We are being told to be as bold as a leopard, right? So we require the courage of a leopard, or the boldness of the leopard, right? To overcome and conquer the evil inclination, not to listen to it, and not to feel our own desires that it's pushing its toward. And this is the evil inclination every day opens up new points, new attack points, new attack vectors, right? New temptations arise every single day. Yet we are being told not to give up, right? We are also told, betachbulot ta'aseh milchama. What would be the translation in English? If you're wise, you should use tactics of war to win, right? So this is telling ourselves you should seek strategies. It could be it's an app. It could be that you have a rubber band tied on your finger. It could be that you have signs around your house. But to beat the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, we need to be as bold as a leopard, and that even means I was cunning like a fox, but you should be smart and be aware of yourself and understand how to give yourself guidelines and give yourself train yourself to be able to overcome the evil inclination, right? And be brave and be bold to ask hard questions, right? Of course, we have to be respectful with how we ask these questions, but we ultimately are the ones who wrestle with God, right?
Yep.
And we are there to ask questions and seek answers as well. And be brave to follow through with what God requires from you, and what would seemingly look like strange traditions, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to not eat meat and milk. I'm going to wrap phylacteries on my body right now. So we should be bold enough to do so without feeling nervous of being ridiculed. Is this too much of a detour? I don't know. I think it's still worth it. There's the famous story of Jacob meeting Rachel. And I'm sorry that I think like I'm thinking out loud. But my brother told me this. He watched one of these and he says, like, you do too much like thinking on the fly and then like deciding whether or not you want to talk about it. But
I think that's the general vibe here. I mean, I enjoy that too. So maybe we're getting into each other as well.
So Jacob meets Rachel. Well, Jacob goes to find a wife, right? And goes to Laban's town and is very curious what he's doing. He doesn't go around telling them, hey, I'm Jacob. I come from the house of Abraham. People know him. My cousin Laban, he's quiet, right? And he's there. Why are you guys waiting? We can't lift the big rock. It's very heavy for us. By the way, do you guys know Laban? Yeah, this is his daughter. Oh, he pushes the rock by himself, gives her a kiss. He starts to cry. It's a very strange scenario what's going on over there. Now, there is a midrash that says that Jacob was, he leaves his father's house, Abraham. This is already, Abraham had the call for adventure, lech lecha, go for yourself, go out there, So Abraham already started that journey. Now Jacob, who's, a few generations down right now, is taking this information and looking out in the world to see if he could actually embody this, right? So he goes and he gets to a well. A well is always symbolizing life, right? I'm at the place where now life could be sustained. And he goes to the people around him, and what does he call them? Achai, my brothers, right? He's already starting with the universal message. I'm looking for the bigger picture over here. He also tells them, me'ayin batem, right? Like we said earlier about the yesh and the ain. Here again, me'ayin batem. He's letting them know, you guys, like me, come from the source, come from the one. You guys come from the ain. Then he sees his wife, and he knew her and I are destined to create this great nation. And that's why he ultimately had to go and kiss her. That's his immediate reaction. I must act. I must be bold like the leopard and act. I see the opportunity in front of me. I must act. However, he cries because, the people around him, they don't understand what's going on. So there's a feeling where, like, even though I know that people are going to look at me strange, I can't hold myself back from doing what's right, so to speak. I'm not getting into her age thing right now. She wasn't 3, she was 14. We don't have to get into like that point. The idea is that he very much carpe diemed this situation over here due to his deep understanding of what's in front of him and his right. That this is an opportunity of a mitzvah, of a way to promulgate what God wants from us. So he had to act, even though people might think it's strange. So here too, again, going back to a long detour, going back to the bold leopard, we are not to be scared about what people think of us. We should be able to act regardless. If we believe it's right, and if we believe it's the right thing to do, we should act.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is also, we're going to touch on it because we were talking about being bashful, but it tells us, I was trying to look at where it is in the Shacharit. I'm pretty sure it's in the morning prayer. It says, and maybe in other places as well, that we should not be ashamed to do the things that God wants us to do or to act in a certain way. So being bold is exactly like what you said. We should not be ashamed that this is what we do, or what we or the things that we wear, or things like that. I have one of the Chabad guys here. It's like an Orthodox fellow, and he wears white and black. but he works at a company, the corporate company, and he says that the people that he mentioned how he has a good friend that kind of like one of the things that say about him that they love how courageous he is or bold, that he kind of wears these what seems to be goofy things with his hat and the whole thing, and he doesn't care what people say. So it's
to
interesting.
be fair, Tom Ford has what he calls his uniform, right? He has like this beautiful black suit and white shirt that he always wears. I wish I could wear that. Living in Israel, if I wore black and white all the time, I would be immediately tagged as an ultra-Orthodox. So, alas.
Here he looks like a weird cowboy because he can wear, like the Chabad also have their fedoras, kind of like you can wear like a cowboy a little bit. So that's like an interesting twist to it.
That's even before we get to the fur hats, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which whatever, we won't get into the fur hats. Okay, and so that was the bold leopard, light as an eagle, right? So light as an eagle is advising us also to elevate ourselves, right? Like the eagle has a bird's eye view in a certain sense, so we want to rise above materialism and the physicality of certain things and try to see like a full picture of what's going on around us. And here too, the evil inclination, again, is always trying to trip us, is trying to bring us down, is trying to pull us downwards. And we are to be like light as eagles, right? To be able to avoid that. This is making me think right now as I'm saying this, my friend wrote this song about falling in love. And he said, I guess that's why they call it falling. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's why they call it falling, because it's natural, like gravity's pull, right? He was talking about falling in love. But just think about it right now here as well. You need to be like the eagle and try to escape escape the gravitational pull, so to speak, because it's naturally always pulling you down.
Right. Yeah. The Ramchal talks about it in Derech Hashem in terms of your material by default. Like when you're I don't remember how he puts it, but like when you're born, I mean, those are the things that you are. That's the essential things that sustain you in this life, and that is the tifo that it is hard for you, that you need to pull from. Yeah, pull out of.
Yeah. Next is fleeting as a deer. Right. So now he's bouncing, he's moving. Right. So he is after we were the eagle. Right. We managed to avoid evil in that sense. Now, now we have being fast as a deer, or fleeting like a deer, or swift like a deer. Fleeting isn't something like disappearing.
It could be disappearing, yeah, fleeting, like a fleeting.
So I would think like quick or fast as a deer, but light as an eagle, right? We were saying we're avoiding evil. I'm rising up above the gravitational pull. Being swift as a deer is actually doing good, right? It's being proactive, trying to find that good, right? So this is more relating to like the positive commandments that we want to be doing. So like we said with Jacob, I want to be quick about performing what the Torah wants from me, the different particular commandments it has for me. And this is another way of defeating the evil inclination. One is trying to escape it or not have it in my vicinity, looking at the bigger picture. Another one is being quick enough to avoid it and focusing on the proper commandment in between the bush, so to speak. Right. Yeah. I'm going to be like quick like a deer. I'm going to be moving through there now. Right. And like we said, when a mitzvah, when opportunity arises, I should take it immediately. I should be swift, like Jacob, who didn't hesitate, right? He just knew what had to be done. And he was both bold and he was quick, right? And he was swift or fleeting like the deer in this sense. Now, aside for the metaphor of the deer being swift, which sort of makes sense, there's another sense that when the deer, I believe this is true, when the deer is running away from the cheetah or from the lion, whatever it is, he turns around while he runs, right? So he's still looking back to see if the lion is still chasing him. In our case, if the evil inclination is still chasing me, right? I think I'm the quickest guy in town and I'm the best deer, and I'm galloping and I'm running and I think I'm home clear, right? But it's very possible that the track I'm on or the speed I'm running is really being just the evil inclination is alongside me for the ride, right? So this has to do with us constantly steel manning, scrutinizing the way we behave, the way we act, really making sure that in no sense, while we think we're being quick and we're ahead of the game, it could very well be that we're still within the claws of the evil inclination. And what we thought was the proper speed force that the Flash and Barry Allen use ultimately is the negative speed force that is used by the reverse Flash, right? So I'm saying we can end up harming ourselves without even noticing. So that's why it's always important for us to double check, re-examine, and even scrutinize, really make sure we are running in the right direction and in the right speed, and that there's nothing else behind us. Gibor Ka'ari, and mighty as a lion. All right, so here this is famously we are described as lions as well. All right, so here too, even if I managed to beat the evil inclination because I managed to avoid the gravitational pull and I was quick enough to avoid it, this was the win for Monday, but there's Tuesday, right? The success of today doesn't guarantee that I'm immune from tomorrow. And while the lion is the king of the beasts of the forest, he nevertheless still has to be aware of his pride. If he shows any weakness, another lion's going to come and attack, right? So one day doesn't mean that you now could rest on your laurels. You got to be you got to be ready to deal with these struggles every day, right? And it's telling us that you might be feeling overwhelmed, and you might feeling like this is another day where I'm getting hammered by these temptations. This is where you need to find this inner strength to resist these temptations.
Yeah.
And obviously in the Jewish history, there's been many, many, many times where the world was looking at us and seeing us participate our strange mitzvot, and they came out against us, right? And they wanted to kill, burn, maim, but that doesn't mean we stop, right? There's the famous picture of the horrible pictures of the Jews in Poland, right? Standing above like a mass grave with their phylacteries on, right? When the Nazis like laughing with a gun to his head. Nevertheless, it didn't matter that they looked strange. It didn't matter that they knew they were going to die. They remained as brave as lions. And of course, we hope that in our little land of Israel today and around the world, we could make sure that their deaths were not for naught, and rather they are martyrs that are sitting under the throne of God, enjoying the radiance of him as well. And ultimately, we finish this Mishnah. Could you just scroll down with this blessing we said, right? This interesting blessing, right? So, like we said, actually, before the blessing, we should mention that it's curious if the last Mishnah we just spoke about how I shouldn't be. Actually, did I skip it? Oh, about the brazen. No, I skipped it.
Yeah, we didn't cover that.
All right, we should say the brazen to purgatory and the bashful to paradise, right? So it's actually a question, which is if they're telling us to being bold like a leopard, right? Then why are they also telling us that a brazen face is going to Gehenna, right? Isn't the bold leopard, isn't that also being brazen in a certain sense? Also, we were reading about Bilam, right? About being haughty and being out there. So we're just saying, be as brave as a lion, fly like an eagle, be bold like a leopard. So these seem sort of counterintuitive and potentially also problematic, right? And we also know that leopards and lions also, in a certain sense, also symbolize cruelty, right? So,
like I said, like we should not be ashamed of the things that we wear, how like mitzvot, right? They might seem weird, but so why is it telling us that the bashful to paradise, those that are ashamed or are embarrassed?
You could just continue with these reverse analogies, right? The eagle could seem like someone that is not getting his legs dirty and is being, sort of running away from any responsibility. And the deer, right, is very rash and not focusing, right? So we could look at all these things on the flip side. And so why would I want to adopt these qualities? And that's why in its infinite wisdom, of course, the Torah is letting us know that as long as you're doing this like a disagreement for heaven's sake, as long as the orientation is proper, as long as the goals are actually defined, then you could do this properly. And that's also why can you scroll up for a second?
Yes.
I want to see if the word is over here. Right, no, okay. But generally speaking, we talk about measurements, midot, right? Elo hamidot she'atorah nidresha b'hem. These are the measurements that we interpret the Torah. So all these things are, as long as they're done in the proper measurement, right, and the proper orientation, then you could be successful using these tools. One has to be very careful, of course, using these tools, right? You don't want to be quickly becoming brazen face, right? That's not what we want. And we, of course, know, right, that the Israelites are called brazen, right? She'oref, we have like a stern back. We have azut metzach, right? We are brazen as well. So Rashi, for example, gives that the Torah was given to the Israelites, sheyaskuba v'hi mateshet et kocham, that the Israelites should be able, or the Jew should be able to engage in the Torah, and it will ultimately humble them and weaken their strength in a certain sense, which, they're very, very brazened. So the Torah is there to create a balance and refine the world, and also refine the Jew or the Israelite in a certain sense. And it also emphasizes, as far as like the brazen face, that the problematic characters that are interior ultimately make it out to the exterior, right? Like if I keep on behaving this way, people are going to already see in my face, this is the kind of behavior, this is the kind of attitude this kind of person has ultimately. And on the flip side, modesty obviously leads us to the Garden of Eden at the end of the day, right? So even if I fail, it doesn't mean I can't sin over here, right? The feeling of shame, in a certain sense, gives me this level of this protective feel. And we also say that when someone sins, he tells himself, I hope no one sees me, right? There's a sense where being shame, and not because you believe that you're a nothing, but knowing, and we spoke about this on the reverse with the amount of social pressure that we have on the pious one, right? That we know that he's not going to sin because everyone already sees him as this great guy. It's already too late for him to start like playing games and sinning. Here too, the shameful sinner, if he manages to utilize the shame properly and orient it properly, that lets him create this protective shield where he tells himself, I don't want to feel this again. I don't want to feel this shame. And that's why I'm going to make sure that I'm constantly behaving properly, right? So there's a certain amount of social fear and social pressure that can be used, A, to make sure that the pious one remains elevated, and B, to actively elevate the sinner, right? Because he no longer wants to be in that place where he's being looked down at or being called out, right? Yeah. So this would hopefully, we hope, will protect him. And of course, these are certain tactics that when we teach our kids, right? Like, what are people going to say? The kids themselves create this, my son wants to cuddle with me at night, which is beautiful. And then I'll joke, I'm like, if you have a sleepover with your friends, can they see us cuddling? And he's like, no. Like, why? But like, that's like, he doesn't, like, there's that sense of like, they're going to laugh at me. So if we could build that where you don't want someone seeing you being disrespectful, you don't want someone seeing you stealing, all these things, you don't want someone seeing you being too quick to judgment. These are all things that ideally we don't want people judging us. Rather, like we said, we want to be scrutinized. We want to be living in a place where we are all asking ourselves to assist each other to raise up our level.
Yep.
And right. So then we get to this blessing, which we said was there because it is part of, this was originally the ending of Pirkei Avot. Nevertheless, we still have the sixth chapter, but there's a sense over here where the rabbi over here, Rav Yehuda ben Tema, is mentioning the brazen face is because the Talmud talks about that the period preceding the Messiah, right, is going to be the generation that is full of chutzpah, of brazenness, right? That's what we're going to see around us. So in a certain sense, it's a prayer where he's saying, while I see around me more and more of this attitude coming up, I see people being brazen. Hopefully this is because we are at the generation that is going to see the Messiah. Rav Kook talks about this as well, right? The brazenness of the generation. So we are at the end of that period, right? I hope. One could only hope, right? And like we said earlier, that these attributes that are problematic could be oriented for the good. In order to do so, we need to make sure that we are locked into the proper system. And so we say that God, right, that we want to make sure, grant us a portion in your Torah. Make sure that the learning we're doing and the way we're happening is happening inside your system that's connected to you. And hopefully that will allow us to make sure that we are oriented properly and we're going the right way and we're going the right direction.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't want to have boundless options. We don't want to be like the eagle flying anywhere we want, or being like the leopard being as brazen as we want. We want to be dedicated to the Torah study and upholding Judaism. And if we're doing that properly, then we could take those attributes, as long as the measurement is proper, right? Then I could take from the swiftness of the deer, or the lightness of the eagle, right, or the boldness of the leopard.
It reminds me of the good eye and the evil and the bad eye. If you do it with the right kind of direction, then it can be done. It can be incorporated in the right way.